There we were standing center stage dressed in saloon girl costumes. For high school junior boys performing the can-can. Our costumes were satin dresses, trimmed with lace, corset, and lace petticoat. We had stockings, a choker and feathered headpiece on. A pair of 2.5-inch heel boots completed the costume. We looked like 4 girls so much that our mothers could hardly tell. How did 4 guys become beautiful can-can dancers? It all started when Miss Moss called us into her office 8 weeks ago. Jeff and I were hanging out in the drama room waiting for results of the tryouts of the spring play. The spring play was the big send-off for the seniors. It also meant for the juniors like us could get speaking parts. This year we were doing a Western musical with 8 speaking parts. There were 12 seniors and juniors wanting to perform. The odds of me getting a speaking part were good. Ms. Moss, our drama teacher, called me into her office and closed the door. She said that we all know that there are 4 juniors who will not get a speaking part this year, but there was another issue. The play called for a group of saloon dancers and there were a limited number of girls who could dance. She had the idea that the saloon girls could be played by 4 guys. The goal would be to have it as a surprise and to make it impossible to tell that they were guys. Because the spring play was the moneymaker for the school theater department, everything would be provided, including a private rehearsal location and other things needed during rehearsal. She asked if I would be interested. She would need a decision by the morning. I walked out of her office and she called Jeff in behind me. Jeff was my best friend and my ride home, so I waited for him. We did not say a word till we got out of the car at my house. After we got home, we decided if we do this, we would do it together. The extra practices would not be a problem for me because my sister was at college and my single mother worked second shift. I only saw her in the mornings and Sundays. She worked as many hours as she could to pay for my sister's college. We both decided to go for it. Ms. Moss said we would get the first pick of parts for our senior play. In the morning, we talked to Ms. Moss and said we would do it. She said to meet her in her office at the end of the day, and we would get more details. At the end of the day, Jeff and I showed up to Ms. Moss' office. Mike and Brad were already in her office. Ms. Moss entered the room with a couple. She introduced the couple as Mr. and Mrs. Robbins, our dance teachers and choreographers. The Robbins owned the dance studio where we would practice to get ready for the play. They took our basic measurements and shoe size for our practice clothes. They said our first practice would be next Tuesday at 7 p.m. at their studio. We would practice on Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours and Saturday afternoon for 4 hours. Between now and then it was suggested to do basic exercise like running to build our stamina. Jeff and I met the next day to go for a run. On Monday, the cast list came out. Ms. Moss already told us the list and said that the 4 of us would be on it as production assistants. This way we could participate during school hours. The 4 of us made excuses why we could not be in the play. We said that we could not do both weeks of the play because 2 of us were gone for a family event. The others 2 were going to be gone for a church event. Everyone that asked seems to buy our story. Week 1 before our first practice, Jeff came over to my house. We decided that we would not run before practice. Time seemed to be going by so slow until we left. Since the school was providing everything, we did not need to bring anything. At 6:30 we decided to leave even though the dance studio was less than 15 minutes away. We arrived at the studio about 15 minutes early and went in. We told the lady behind the desk that we were looking for Mr. or Mrs. Robbins. She said, "You must be the boys for the new class. Please go upstairs to the conference room, the last door on the left." We went upstairs and found the conference room. It looked onto one of the large dance studios with a one-way mirror, meaning we could see them, but they could not see us. In the studio there were a few girls dancing in black leotards and white tights. About half of them I knew from school, including Jenny Gray. She was a good friend who lived down the street from me and was a friend of mine. About this time Brad and Mike walked into the room. We started talking about what we have gotten ourselves into. A few minutes later Mr. and Mrs. Robbins come into the room with a box. They pull 4 plastic bags out of the box. Each bag had an initials corresponding with our names. Inside there were several items: a box with Capezio's jazz shoes of our size, a red tracksuit, white shirt with a T-back and a pair of spandex black shorts. Both the shorts and shirt said women on the package. The last thing was a plastic bag with a pair of nude underwear. Mr. Robbins explained to us that it is a dance belt. He said our practice clothing would be here on Saturday and more could be added later. Mr. Robbins said to be dressed before practices. The tracksuit would allow us to cover our dance wear as we came and went. Today we could use the bathroom across the hall. Brad and Mike went first to change. Jeff and I waited in the conference room looking at the new clothes. Brad and Mike came back into the room all dressed. We went into the bathroom to change. First was to put on the dancer's belt. The dancer belt supported the genitals more than any other underwear I have ever worn. It was like thong underwear which I had seen in the store but never worn. Then the shorts and shirt. Then shoes without any socks. I always wore socks. We put our street clothes into the bags and went downstairs. Room F was about 20 by 25 feet with mirrors on 3 walls and handrails on the long sides. There were cubes near the door for storage of our bags and a curtain that covered the door. Mr. and Mrs. Robbins were standing in the middle of the room. They told us the plan for the day was to stretch out, then some basic routines to judge our skill level, and finally some exercises that we can work on between classes. We started with a series of stretches. Mr. Robbins showed stretches that would work out the important parts of our bodies for dance. They were more intense than the ones I did when I was running cross country or on the community swim team. I was not good at either because I was not very competitive, but I enjoyed doing them. After 30 minutes, Mrs. Robbins started to teach the basics of dance. None of us had any formal dance training, so she started with showing us how to align our bodies. She took us through moves that showed us how to properly align our bodies both when we were standing and moving. We kept repeating the moves until all 4 of us had mastered them. She was very encouraging and said we were doing very good for our first time dancing. She combined moves into a complex routine. Each time we went through them, we got a little faster. We kept repeating for about an hour till Mr. Robbins came back into the room. He started a series of exercises to increase our flexibility. He suggested that we should do them along with running or some jump roping to warm our muscles beforehand. The exercise would improve our legs and core. They left the room, and we put on our tracksuits. We said that this could be more fun than we thought. The next day Jeff came over after school. We went out for a run and tried the exercises. We were both very sore afterwards. Thursday after school was the first meeting of the entire play's cast and crew. Ms. Moss went over the schedule showing the first performance would be in 6 weeks from today. That performance would be for the student body, then public shows Friday night, 2 on Saturday and Sunday afternoon. The next week would repeat with Friday night, 2 on Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Ms. Moss introduced the entire cast and then went on to the crew. She said the 4 of us would be production assistants, meaning that we would help her on task and wherever was needed. After the meeting, Jeff and I went over to my house to do some homework and change for practice. We put on our dancer belt, shorts, and shirt, helping each other go through stretching exercises before leaving for the studio. We arrived at the studio and the receptionist told us to go ahead to room F. Mike and Brad had already been in the room and were stretching. We took off our tracksuits, put on our dance shoes, and joined them. Mr. Robbins came and impressed that we were already stretching. He ran us through the stretches for about 15 minutes. Mrs. Robbins came in, and we did the same set of dance drills as Tuesday. She said that we were all picking the dance up very quickly, and we might move to more advanced stuff on Saturday. On Friday, Jeff and I did what has been our typical off-day run and workout. We both could feel that we could go a little further with the stretches each day. I slept in late on Saturday. I think my body was not used to all the exercise. Filling in my mother before she went to work about the events of the week. I told her that it was so far fun and something very different. Jeff pulled into the driveway as she was leaving for work. We went for a short run and did our stretches. We went to the dance studio and up into the conference room, arriving before Mike and Brad. After they came in, Mr. Robbins walked in carrying a box. He handed each of us a duffel bag with our first initial embroidered on them. As we opened the bag, he said they decided that we should get used to wearing women's dance wear. Inside the bag were 2 black leotards and 2 packets of new dance tights. Also was a second dance belt. Mr. Robbins explained how to put on the tights, which I knew from watching my mother and sister put on pantyhose. He explained how to use the dance belt to tuck our member, giving us a flat front looking more female in our dance wear. He sounded like he had done both before. The second set of clothes were so we had an alternate outfit. He told us to put on the tights, leotard with our shorts over top, and come down to the practice room. After he left the room, all 4 of us looked at each other and started to take off our shirt and shorts. We all opened the tights and started putting them on. As we started putting them on, the room got very quiet. After I was done, I put on the leotard with my shorts over top, then my dance shoes. I looked in the wall mirror and thought how much I looked like the girls in the studio down below. After the others had finished, we put everything into our new bags and went to the studio. As we walked down the stairs, we were giggling like a bunch of girls. Mrs. Robbins greeted us, and we started to do our stretching. Since this was a long class, we probably stretched for over 30 minutes before she started to run us through some dance routines. As promised, these were more intense than ones early in the week. After a break, she had us all try and do a cartwheel. All 4 of us could do one, some of us took a few tries. Mike was the best at it. We found out he took gymnastics when he was in grade school. We spent some time improving them until all of us could repeatedly do them. Next, she had us try and do the front splits. None of us could do them, but again Mike was the closest. She showed us some additional stretches to add to our daily routine that will help us become more flexible. At the end of the day, we were all very sore. We put on our tracksuit over our leotards and tights and headed home. Jeff dropped me off at home. I did not change out of my tights and leotard till hours after getting home. I think I was enjoying wearing them. On Sunday, Mom and we spent doing our normal shopping and other things. It was the first day I did not do a run or see Jeff. I did do the flexibility exercises. Week 2, Jeff came over after school on Monday for a run and exercises. Each day I could feel that they were getting a little easier, and I was getting more flexibility. Tuesday, as we were changing for a run before going to the dance studio, I could see that Jeff had his dance tights and belt on under his school clothes. He said that he was enjoying wearing them and had them on all day since Sunday. I had to confess that I wore mine all Saturday night after class. Dance class on Tuesday was like before. Mrs. Robbins ran us through stretches, then the flexibility training and some more dance moves, including cartwheels and splits, even though we could not get down all the way. The class was flying by and felt like no time. Wednesday was like Monday, where Jeff came over for a run and exercises, but there was one thing different. Since it was a cold spring day, Jeff was wearing a pair of shiny black leggings. They looked different until he explained that he took them from his sister's room. She was the same age as my sister and was also off at college. He said it was like wearing the dance tights, and he was wearing his dance belt underneath. After our run and Jeff left, I went into my sister's room and took a pair of hers for our next run. Dance class on Thursday, we were taught how to do a high kick. It was going to be a staple of our performance. All the stretching and flexibility exercises were paying off. We all could kick higher than our waists. Friday, both Jeff and I went running wearing our leggings. Jeff was right, they felt good to wear like our dance tights. I did not sleep as late as last Saturday. I guess my body was getting to all the exercise. Over breakfast, I filled in my mother about the week, how my flexibility has increased, and about wearing leotard and tights. She started to call me her little ballerina. My mother asked if Jeff was coming over to run. I said that he had some family things on Saturdays, so I was on my own till class. She asked if I wanted to run with her. My mother has always been in good shape. She goes to exercise class before work a few days a week. I went upstairs and without thinking put on my sister's tights and one of my male exercise shirts. My mother was wearing black tights with blue geometric patterns along the legs. She was also wearing a matching sports bra and exercise shirt with a racer back. Even though my mother was in her 40s, she still looked good. She asked about the tights and I had to confess I stole them from my sister. She joked that at least I have the legs for them. We did some light stretching before going off onto a run. She let me lead and we did the normal route I did with Jeff during the week. It came out to be a 2-mile run. After we got home, I needed to do my flexibility exercises before going to class. She started to watch at first, then she helped me by holding my legs or pushing down to go farther than I could naturally do. After finishing with the flexibility routine, we both went and changed. I got ready for dance class and she got ready for work. I changed into my dancer's belt, tights and leotard and went downstairs to get some lunch and wait for Jeff to come pick me up. This was the first time my mother saw me in my dance outfit, and she commented on how cute I looked. My sister was not into the dance or theater. She got the book smarts out of the two of us. My mother had me stand up and turn around a few times. She left and went off to work. Jeff was running late and picked me up 10 minutes before class. We got to the studio right on time and went directly into the studio. We started with our traditional stretching exercises and flexibility. Mrs. Robbins commented on how far we have come in the last week. We went through several dance routines which we had learned earlier in the week, including the high kicks and even a cartwheel. After a break, Mr. Robbins walked in. He was holding hangers with skirts. The skirts were long and went down all the way to the ankle with built-in underwear. We slid the skirts up. There were snaps on the side which set the size around the waists with a zipper in the back. We all checked each other in the mirror. We went through several dance routines from earlier. We would need to learn how to move in a skirt since the skirt movement is a key element of the can-can. Jeff took me home and like last week I spent the evening in my leotard and tights watching TV. Sunday over breakfast my mother asked if I wanted to do a run again today. She really enjoyed it yesterday. I said sure, even knowing it was my off day, but I also enjoyed spending the time with my mother since she was always working. I went upstairs and changed into my sister's leggings and threw on a shirt. Once downstairs, my mother had changed into a similar outfit then yesterday but with yellow trim. She suggested that I change my top to the female shirt because it matched my tights better. We repeated doing some stretching and warm-ups before going on a 2-mile run. My mother was in a chatty mood during the run, and she asked if I had any plans for the summer. I replied that I was most likely going to try working as a lifeguard again since it was good money. After the run we worked on my flexibility. This time she was a little more aggressive on extending my legs higher and farther than before. She commented I would look better in my leotard and the women's shirt if I shaved my armpits. We changed and went out to lunch and did our normal shopping. At the grocery store, we went to the shaving aisle where she picked up some women's razors, shaving cream and moisturizer. She said it was for my armpits. After getting home from the shopping, I knew that women shaved their arms and legs, and some of my swimming team buddies shaved their entire body, but I was never that competitive. I went upstairs to take a shower and shave my armpits. Figuring why stop there, I ended up shaving my entire body below my neck. After finishing, I rubbed lotion over my entire body and got ready to go to bed. Week 3 the week went on like before. With the shaved body, wearing tights and tucking became more pleasurable. In Tuesday's dance class, all of us could do a front split and Mike and I could both do side splits. The daily exercises were paying off. Wednesday during school, Miss Moss pulled the 4 of us aside. She wanted to check on how we were doing. The thought between the group was we were having fun and enjoying it. We all thought it was better than having to memorize lines. On Thursday, after we were done, both Mr. and Mrs. Robbins commented that we were doing much better than they originally thought we would do. Mr. Robbins said they were going to rethink the final number to make it more detailed. Friday, I got home from school to find a box on my bed. When I opened it, I found a note from my mom saying this should help me run better. Inside was 3 outfits matching what she wore last week in my size. One was in blue, second in yellow, and last was purple. Each outfit was a pair of running tights, a woman's exercise top with a racer back, and a sports bra. I was not sure why I needed a sports bra. There were a pair of running shoes that matched the outfit and were more of a feminine style. Saturday morning, I got up and went downstairs to have breakfast. I thanked my mother for the box. I asked her why I needed the sports bra. She said that it will help me feel more like a girl. We both changed into our matching workout outfits. It was the first time I had ever worn a sports bra or any bra. It was a different feeling. As I got down the stairs, my mother told me how great I looked. We did our run and we looked like mother and daughter. The outfit, especially the sports bra, took a little while to get used to, but by halfway through the run I did not notice I was wearing it. We got home and I gave my mother a big hug. She went to change while I found some lunch, still wearing the outfit. Jeff picked me up to go to practice as usual. We went through our normal routines for the first half of the session, then Mr. Robbins walked in carrying 4 large shoe boxes. Looking at the shoe sizes printed on the boxes, he distributed them accordingly to each of us. We all sat down and opened the boxes, which had ankle-high lace-up black leather boots. The boots had a 2.5-inch heel. Mr. Robbins explained these boots were for our performance and will take us a bit to get used to, and the boots needed breaking in. The 4 of us took off our dance shoes and put on the boots. They were very supportive of the ankles, and after a few steps we were less wobbly. We spent the rest of the session learning to walk and dance in the boots, so we did not twist our ankles. At the end of class, we changed out of the boots and headed home. Jeff dropped me off. I changed back into my boots and spent all evening walking around the house in my boots and dance wear. Sunday morning, I got up and had breakfast and told my mother about my new boots. We both changed into matching outfits and went for a run as mother and daughter. We got back changed and went out to lunch and did some shopping. My mother wanted to see me in my boots, so I changed into my dance outfit and went downstairs. She moved the coffee tables, and I gave her a little dance show. She commented on how much I have changed over the last 3 weeks. We spent the rest of the evening watching TV together. I was still in my dance outfit and boots. By the end of the night my feet were quite sore. Week 4 Monday during drama class, Miss Moss asked the 4 of us if we could show up to the dance studio an hour early so that we could be measured for costumes. After school, Jeff and I went for a run. This was the first time he saw me in my new workout outfit. I think he was jealous of my new outfit, but he did not say anything. Jeff and I changed into our dance clothes and hung around the house until it was time to go. We got to the studio when we went upstairs where the Robbins and Ms. Moss were waiting. They had us take off our tracksuits and leotards, standing there in only our tights. The 3 of them commented that we all already had shaved our armpits and chest, which will make things easier. Miss Moss told us that they would need to enhance our body to give the correct female shape when we were in our costumes. The first thing was to have fake breasts attached to our chest. At this point, Mr. Robbins took off his shirt and picked up a skin-colored item off the table. He went on to explain that these were silicone bra cups that will use our pecs to create cleavage. The first step was to clean our chest of any sweat and dirt with a wipe. After wiping, he pulled a spray can and sprayed the back of the cup with an adhesive. He then placed the silicone piece underneath the nipple and towards the side of his chest. Then he repeated it on the other side. Next, he placed an additional silicone piece over top. Lastly, he pulled the 2 clips together, connecting them. His wife then handed him a bra which he put on. It created the illusion within a few minutes, creating a man with a woman's chest with breast and cleavage. It was now time for the 4 of us to try. We each cleaned our chest with wipes. Miss Moss and the Robbins assisted us with attaching the cups to our chest. They handed us a bra like my sports bra but with plastic straps, telling us it was designed for dancing. Next, they handed us a bag with a nude-colored piece of clothing. As we opened, Mike asked if this was a new leotard. Mrs. Robbins explained it was a camisole leotard to be worn under our dance-wear and costume. Like the bra, it had clear plastic strips. Next was a waist clincher to provide slimming capabilities in the midriff region. It was made with a soft blend of materials and spandex. Our costume will have a corset, but this will help us during training. It was a little tough to put on the boots wearing the waist clincher, but the flexibility training made bending at the waist easier. I am not sure if I could have done it a month ago. Brad was the first one done, and Ms. Moss had him stand up on a box in the middle of the room. Ms. Moss went around his body and took several measurements as Mrs. Robbins wrote them down on a notepad. Jeff was next to get measured. I was up next. It seemed as I was standing on the box that she measured every part of my body. Mike was last. Jeff asked what color our dresses were going to be. Ms. Moss said, "Funny you ask," as she then pulled a hat from the table and explained that we would pick our dress color out of the hat. She said there were 8 color options, and this would be the fairest way. We would pick in reverse order that we were measured, so Mike was first. He pulled a card out of the hat and showed it to Ms. Moss. It was hunter green. I was next and I pulled out a card. It said peacock, a dark blue. Jeff was next and pulled maroon. Last, Brad pulled out lavender. After we had all picked the colors, we put on our skirts and went downstairs to start practicing. We did our normal stretching and started working through the routine. The first run-through was relatively rough because the boobs and waist clincher changed our center of balance. It was easier to get used to than the boots, and after the 3rd time through the routine, they did not affect us. Miss Moss stayed the entire time. As we finished, she told us how amazing we were doing, and our dancing was well above anything she was hoping for. When Jeff came over for a run, Wednesday, I could tell he was wearing his waist clincher all day underneath his clothes just like I had. We both changed into our running outfits and decided that we should put on our new enhancements. We followed the instructions from the day before. I put on one of my matching sport bras over top. Jeff put on a white sports bra which I assumed he got from his sister. We did our normal cycle around the neighborhood. During class on Thursday, Miss Moss pulled the 4 of us aside and again told us how impressed she was with our dancing and dedication. She did not say anything, but I am sure she noticed that all 4 of us were wearing our waist clinchers by how she emphasized the word dedication. She decided with the consultation of the Robins to increase our role in the play. Instead of having a 5-minute dance sequence at the end of Act 1, she is going to write in a second sequence at the end of Act 2. This also means that we will be in the background of the saloon scenes and on stage a lot longer. She asked if we had any problems with this idea, and all 4 of us were excited about the changes. On Saturday morning during breakfast, I told my mother about how Miss Moss has increased our role in the play and about the experience of getting measured. I told her I had a surprise for our run. I went upstairs and put on my boobs since I had been wearing them all week running with Jeff, knowing that she would like them. I walked downstairs with my exercise shirt in hand, fully exposing my enhancements to her. Her eyes lit up with amazement and a big smile that came over her face. She told me they looked amazing and asked a bunch of details about them and had to touch them. We did our normal run. The whole time my mother was talking about my boobs. It was kind of embarrassing. After we were done, she got ready to go to work and I got ready to go to dance class. Saturday during dance class we started to learn the second routine. The routine ended in a complex move where we would do a jump split. We worked on both routines for the entire 4 hours. By the end we had both routines worked out. Sunday had become the day I spent with my mother. After eating our breakfast, we went for our run. She kept still talking about my boobs. After the run, we went out and did our shopping errands. We went into the feminine intimate section. She used the excuse that she needed to pick up a new bra. After we got home, she pulled out the bra she bought and handed it to me, explaining that this way I could wear my boobs without the sports bra if I wanted to get used to them for the part. I took the hint and went upstairs and put my new boobs on and waist clincher on. We spent the evening watching movies. I got up to get a drink and she said I looked different. It was the first time I wore my waist clincher around her. I lifted my shirt to show her and explained how Ms. Moss told us that it would help us better fit into our dresses. She smiled and said that Ms. Moss was probably right because she could already tell a difference. Week 5 Monday during class, Ms. Moss had another odd job for us to do. We helped the workers from the school's warehouse set up the dressing rooms. Because of the size of the show, the 2 existing dressing rooms are not big enough for the entire cast. They get used by the primary actors, and a series of multi-purpose rooms near the theater will be converted into dressing rooms. These multi-purpose rooms all had one wall with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and a small counter with a sink. They were used by all the fine arts departments including the music, dance, and theater. The first room, which is the farthest away from the theater but right next to the back door, was set up with only 2 tables and 4 chairs, making the big room look very empty. It is what Ms. Moss's instructions said. 2 other rooms were set up with 10 tables with chairs filling the room. The last room closest to the theater door just got tables since this room was used by the crew and cast. It primarily served as a break area where the food is kept. After setting up tables and chairs, the rooms got clothing racks and a couple of small Scandinavian-designed sofas. Jeff's job was to put on slipcovers on the sofas to keep them clean. We unloaded a series of wooden boxes which sat on the tables and folded out, containing mirrors and vanity lights. Brad got the fun job of rolling around on the floor with extension cords plugging in the boxes. The room with only 2 tables got 4 mirror boxes, and the others were distributed equally between the other 2 dressing rooms. 4 tables in one dressing room had a long mirror on the stands attached to the tables. And 8 light bar vanity lights were put on top of the long mirrors. The last thing was each room got 2 folding screens. One was used to block the door from someone looking into the room, and the other was put in the corner of the room. I wondered why the one room only got so few mirrors until it was pointed out by Mike the room was for the dancers. It took me a minute to figure it out. The 4 of us would have our own private dressing room. Ms. Moss met the 4 of us at our dressing room during class on Tuesday. She said the reports from the Robins that our work on the second routine was going well. Since the first performance was a week out, we needed to start preparing. To keep our involvement in the play secret, we would be responsible for all our stage preparations, including costume, hair, and makeup. The plan was to have a full dry run at the school on Saturday instead of at the studio. We would need to learn how to do our hair and makeup before. We would be wearing wigs since our hair is not long enough to style. I have worn a wig twice before. The first time was in the 7th grade play where I played one of the Oompa Loompa in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The second time was for Halloween, as I went trick-or-treating as a hair metal band member. I had never had to put on my own makeup. Someone else did it when I wore makeup before. The first thing she had us to do was to comb back our hair. None of us had long hair, but I do not think any of us have got a haircut since we started dancing. She showed us how to use snap hair clips to hold back our hair. We opened a package on the table that contained a wig cap, placed it on our heads, and used bobby pins to attach it to our hair. Ms. Moss handed out boxes about 12 inches cube from a cart with our names on them. We undid the tape on the bottom of the box, lifting the top off. All the wigs were styled in the same manner, bangs with large curls, and the hair swept back into a ponytail. The hair in the ponytail was curled in small tight curls and shoulder length. Holding the ponytails was a lace band which contains large feathers. The feathers were in the colors of the dresses, with the largest feather matching our personal color. My wig hair color was a light brown, relatively close to my hair. The color of Jeff's wig is a dark red, which matched the large maroon feather. Brad's wig was blonde, and Mike had black hair. We spread glue around our hairline and helped each other with the wigs. Using a moist washcloth, we dabbed the lace from the front of the wig into the glue. The final step for the wig was to add bobby pins under the hair, securing it to our heads. After moving my head around, Ms. Moss confirmed the wig was on tight. Ms. Moss sat down at one of the mirrors. She used wipes to take off her makeup. She always had the most immaculate makeup on. It was the only time I had ever seen her without makeup. She opened a box from the table and started to explain the process. She pulled out a bottle, telling us that it was a makeup primer. This will smooth and even out your complexion and help the makeup stay on longer as we sweat. Next was foundation. It was used to build up your other makeup. She spread the liquid over her entire face, telling us that it should also cover the lace on our wig. To stop the makeup from looking cakey, she covered the foundation with concealer. She made sure to cover around the eyes and soften the edges with a sponge. Use different shades of light and dark makeup. She taught us to contour our face, including areas under our eyes, nose, and cheeks. Red blush was added to her cheeks to add a pop of color. She explained that the highlights and blush were on the extreme side so that it would be seen from the stage. Now it was time to move on to the eyes. Pulling out an item from the box, Ms. Moss explained that it was 4 color eyeshadows. We each have eyeshadow colors that match our dress. The set she pulled out was a set of green colors, so it was for Mike. The first step was to apply the light base color over the eyes, then the next color on the eyelids. A darker color applied under the eyebrow and darkest color applied on the outside of the eye, blending the color. She pulled out a pencil and outlined the top eyelid with a black color, then using a silver color did her bottom lid. Using a series of brushes, she blended it all together. She went over her eyebrows with a small comb, then added a brown color using a pencil. The brown color covered less than her real brows but stood out more in an arch shape. She added mascara to her lashes, then explained how to put on false eyelashes. I was amazed how her eyes were changed during the process, making them look more open. I had never really watched my sister or mother put on their makeup, but it never looked like this. She covered her face with a powder to set the makeup, brushing it off, making a mess on her shirt. Using a pencil, she lined her lips with a dark red color, then lipstick. That was something I had seen my mother do many times. Last, she added some gloss to the center of the lips. Her makeup looked amazing. It was even better than what she came in wearing. Miss Moss handed us a piece of paper which outlined the steps she just did and contained an illustration of the makeup. She said that we should take it slow, and after a few repetitions, we will have it down. Now it is time for us to do our makeup. The first thing she had us do was to clean our face with the wipes and apply moisturizer. We all followed the steps applying the makeup as Miss Moss previously shown us. I had worn makeup before, but it was a different experience applying it myself, watching in the mirror as my face transformed. I struggled a little with the eyeliner and fake eyelashes. They kept falling off until Miss Moss showed me how to use some tweezers to put them on. Jeff was the first to finish his makeup. I have a feeling he had done it before. As we finished, Ms. Moss had us walk up to the full-length mirror. As I looked in the reflection, I was amazed and thought that I was looking at my sister. Since there was plenty of time left before the end of the school day, Ms. Moss suggested that we remove our makeup and try again. We all did much better applying the makeup a second time. Ms. Moss took our picture, and we removed the makeup. Miss Moss gave us the code to the dressing room door. She said that only the fine arts teachers and principals can open this door, but the room is for us to use for the next 3 weeks. This will allow us to practice our makeup in private. Thursday during class, the 4 of us decided that we should wear our wigs and makeup to dance practice. Ms. Moss thought it was a great idea and it would allow us to get more comfortable wearing them before Saturday's dry run. That afternoon during class we did our hair and makeup. It was starting to become easier and I no longer had to look at the directions. At the end of the day, the 4 of us slipped out using the back door. Since we were in hair and makeup, Jeff and I decided not to go for a run and instead did some exercising in the house. When we got to the studio, the receptionist was amazed at our look. She told us to go directly to the studio. Mrs. Robbins was impressed with our hair and makeup. She said we looked like female dancers from her studio. Jeff said we were with a big smile. We went over the routines. The Robbins said we had it down pat and ready for the shows. After getting home, I took off the makeup and put the wig in the box before heading to bed. Ms. Moss told us we would start at noon, and we should bring all the clothes with us. Saturday morning over breakfast, I did not tell my mother that we learned how to do makeup this week. She knew that we had a dry run this afternoon and the first time we would see our costumes. Mom and I did our normal run. I did not put on my boobs since Ms. Moss told us to show up only in our tracksuit. Jeff picked me up. Instead of going to the dance studio, we headed off to the school. We used the back door and slipped into our dressing room and waited for Ms. Moss. She walked into the room carrying 4 garment bags and hung them up on the rack. Each had a sticker with our names on it. She told us to use the bathroom since it will be tough once we put on our costumes. We were told to put on our dance belt, camisole leotard and a pair of tights only, and she would be back in a few minutes. We followed her instructions and waited her to return. She came carrying a box. She handed us each a bag out of the box. We pulled a bra out of the bag. It was like one my mother got me but in black. We put on our boobs and bra. At this point, wearing boobs was second nature for me. The second item looked like leotard. It had a series of latches in the front and zipper in the back. Ms. Moss explained it was the shape we're replacing our waist clincher. Putting it on, I could feel there was padding on the butt, giving some shape to the backsides. We latched up the front as tight as it would go. It was much tighter than the waist clincher, but with the same movement. Ms. Moss told us to go ahead and put our wig and makeup on before we finished with the rest of the costume. We did our makeup in 30 minutes, cutting the time in half since the first time with all the practice we did during the week. Ms. Moss came back and surprised how fast we were done. She showed us how to use some makeup to enhance our boobs. We pulled out something that looked like a belt with straps hanging down from it. She said it was to hold up our stocking, which were in our bag. They had alternating vertical sheer and solid stripes. We put them on, attaching them to our garters. Now it was time for the dress. We unzipped the garment bags, pulling out the dresses. The dresses were satin black on top with strips of silk color running down to the waist, with a skirt colored the same as the strips. They had a wide shoulder strap with lace that was off the shoulder. Different color lace adorned the bottom of the skirt. White ruffle under skirt with black lace trim. The dress had white lace panties, requiring us to step into the dress. Stepping into the dress and pulling it up, it was fit tight around the waist. Ms. Moss helped us by zipping and lacing up the back of the dress. The dress fit like a glove. I can see why we needed to go to the bathroom before getting ready. She explained that they were custom made based on our measurements. We sat down and put on our boots. We put on the last item from the bag, black lace fingerless gloves that ran above the elbow. Looking in the mirror, it was amazing to see the four of us. We looked like four dancers for a Western show. I guess that was the point. The smile on Ms. Moss told us she approved. Before leaving the room, she took photos and had us pose in various ways. The best shot was Mike and Jeff doing the splits on the floor, and Brad and I are holding up our legs. We went to the stage where the Robins were waiting. Mrs. Robbins gave us all a hug and told us how amazing we looked. We stretched and ran through the routines. Dancing in full costume on stage was amazing, even though we did not have a crowd, but the sound of the boots on the stage made the theater rumble. After doing the routine enough for Ms. Moss and the Robins to be happy, Ms. Moss went over and showed what we should do during the saloon scenes. We went back to the dressing room and started to undress. Ms. Moss told us to leave our boots and undergarments and use the color markers matching our dress to mark the tags. We all took off everything, leaving our undergarments in a bag. We left wearing our tracksuit, dance shorts, and belt. Jeff came over and we watched a movie, but spent most of the time talking about the day and our excitement for the show. On Sunday, Mom and I did a run and did our shopping. She said she could not wait to see the show. Week 6 during class on Monday, Ms. Moss walked into our dressing room. She has arranged for us to miss classes the rest of the week. This will get us enough time on Wednesday to prepare for the dress rehearsal in the afternoon and for the shows starting on Thursday. She said we did such a good job on Saturday that Tuesday, instead of practice, we would be pampered with a spa day. We got to the dressing room after regular classes on Tuesday. There was an envelope sitting on the table. Mike opened it up and inside was directions to a spa across town. The paper inside said we should be there by 5:30. Mike drove the four of us to the spa. We walked inside and the receptionist said, "I guess you guys are our special clients." She said the spa closes at 6, but Ms. Moss had arranged for a special after-hours session. She walked us back to a room which looked like a fancy locker room. It had cubes and hangers for clothes on one wall and a floor-to-ceiling mirror on the opposite wall with a padded bench in the middle. She pointed to the bench and said, "Please change into these items and I will be back for you shortly." On the bench was a folded robe embroidered with our names. The lettering was in the colors of our dresses. Underneath the robes were a pair of shorts. The shorts were made of a stretchy material and nude in color. She closed the door and we started to change. The robe came down to the knees and was made of a white terry cloth. A few minutes later, the receptionist came back and led us to a series of rooms. She put Mike in the first room, Jeff in the second room, I went in the third room, and Brad in the room next to me. The room had a sofa, a rolling stool, and a padded table like you would see in a doctor's office with a pillow. I sat down on the sofa and within a few minutes a woman wearing black scrubs entered. She explained what was going to happen. The first procedure was of full body wax. She had me take off the robe and lay down on the table face down. She commented that I was already shaved so it would be easy, and I will not have to shave for the next 4 weeks. It started with her spreading a gooey paste over my legs. After letting the wax set, she applied strips to them, pulling them. It was a little painful, but after a few strips it got better. After she did the back of my legs and back, she spread a moisturizer over the area she waxed. Then I turned over and waxed my front side up to the shorts. Afterwards, I put the robe back on and she handed me a hairband to pull all the hair out of my face. I laid back down on the table face up, putting the pillow behind my head. She started to give me a facial. She cleaned my face with cotton balls. Using a machine, she applied a thin level of steam, softening my skin. She applied an exfoliator over my skin, explaining it would remove any dead skin. Removing the exfoliator, she used a tweezer and small blade to clean up my eyebrows. Next, she had me close my eyes as she started to add extensions to my eyelashes. They were medium in length and would mean we would not have to wear false eyelashes. When she was finished, I stood up. My face and body felt totally different. I was smooth and soft all over. After a bunch of blinking, I got used to the long eyelashes. Looking in the mirror, my eyebrows were less bushy and nicely shaped but not overly feminine. The whole process took over 2 hours and it was almost 8 p.m. She said the last thing was my nails. The technician led me out to a series of high chairs like shoeshine at the airport. Brad was already sitting in a chair with a woman working on his feet with a big smile on his face. We started talking as the other 2 joined us. We know now why females enjoy going to the spa. One of the women told us they have several men that come in. We watched as they cut and cleaned up our toenails, then applied nail polish. Our nails were colored to match our costumes. With our toes done, they sat us down at tables to do our fingernails. Our nails were cleaned up and extended about a ½ inch and painted to match our toes. As they finished, they gave us 2 bottles. One was the nail polish for touch-up and the other was a nail polish remover. As Mike drove us home, we spent the time getting used to the nails and talking about how great the spa experience was. On Wednesday, I got up late since I did not have to go to class. I was able to have breakfast and did a run with my mother before she went to work. I told her about the entire spa experience and now understand why she and my sister always liked it. She was amazed at the quality of my eyelashes and nails. She loves the colors of my nails and asked if she could borrow the color. Jeff came by and picked me up a little before lunch since Ms. Moss wanted us at school at noon. Since the dressing room was next to the back door, we were able to slip in. Mike was already in the dressing room. There was a bag at each one of the mirrors. Inside the bag was a new set of tights, and the stuff we left to be cleaned and our freshly shined boots. Brad walked in with Ms. Moss. Ms. Moss gave us a short pep talk telling us how proud she was of us. She said she would be back in a few minutes and we should start getting ready. We put on our undergarments and started to put up our hair. We put on our makeup as Ms. Moss watched and assisted us. It was a little different putting on the makeup with nails and the new eyelashes. The new eyelashes meant not having to deal with the fake eyelashes. Inside the bag of accessories was a jewel choker which we did not have on Saturday. We put on our costume and Ms. Moss left us to help the rest of the cast get ready for the dress rehearsal. We had over an hour, so we stretched out wearing our costume. The 4 of us sat in our dressing room in full costume and makeup. A production assistant knocked on our door. As we opened the door, her eyes lit up and got even larger once Brad said something. She was a junior like the rest of us. After a few seconds she realized who we were and told us how amazing we looked. She led us to the stage as the scene changed to the saloon. The first part of our performance was as background actors during the saloon scenes, flirting with the other patrons. It was interesting to watch the other actors when they realized who we were. At the end of the scene, it was time for our first dance routine. All the work paid off and I thought it was one of our best runs of the routine. At the end of the routine, the entire cast and crew started applauding us. Miss Moss calmed down everybody and gave us some praise for our performance. She gave the cast a few tips about changes that need to happen. As we walked back to the dressing room to wait till Act 2, the crew in the hallway told us how amazing we were. We had little time to touch up our makeup. The performance in Act 2 was like Act 1, we had to flirt with saloon patrons and then our second routine to end the act. As we finished up our routine and did our jump split, the entire cast and crew gasped in amazement. After the routine, we went back to the dressing room as the play finished up. After the dress rehearsal wrapped up, we went to the theater in costume as Ms. Moss had a meeting with the cast and crew. Many of the cast and crew came up to us after the meeting and told us how amazing we were. A few scolded us about lying to them about not being in the play. We changed out of our costumes and put our robes from the spa as we talked about how routine went. We took off our hair and makeup, folding up our tights and leotard and other undergarments, putting them into the accessory bag. Jeff took me home. On the drive home, we talked about how being on the stage, even with the little audience, it was so exhilarating. I got home and fell asleep seconds after my head hit the pillow, still in my tracksuit. Thursday, we had to be at school at the normal time since there was 2 shows. The shows were for the full school, one before lunch and one after. This would give the cast a few more practices before paying crowds. It would also prepare for Saturday when we have 2 shows. All 4 of us showed up around the same time wearing our tracksuit. We all were wearing our dancer belts with our male bits tucked and started to get ready, putting on our tights, leotard, and shapewear. As we started to get ready, we were bubbling with excitement of the show. Miss Moss came in and checked on us, but we were all done with our hair and makeup and started stretching. The first show went off without a hitch. The crowd was muted because it was made up of underclass students who were forced to be there. Between the shows we had 2 hours, we went back to our dressing room and took off our costume, putting on our tracksuit over our undergarments. Ms. Moss got pizza for the cast and crew. It was the first time we spent any time with the cast and crew. We could finally tell the story of all the work and training we have done to get ready. Hurrying back to our dressing room, we put on our dresses and touched up our makeup to get ready for the second show. The second show was for the juniors and seniors. They seemed to be more engaged. When Ms. Moss introduced the cast, there was a gasp when we were introduced. It was at that point they realized who we were and bust out in applause and whistles. After the show, we went back to the dressing room and changed. After getting home, I was worn out and took a hot shower. It was too early to go to bed, so I just relaxed. Friday was a teacher workday, so there was no school. Mother came in and gave me a kiss on the head on her way to work. I had slept through the entire morning. I got up and had lunch, spending the afternoon relaxing. Ms. Moss wanted us to be at the school at 4. This was hours before the show, but she wanted to go over the performances from Thursday. Jeff picked me up early and we hung out in the dressing room before the meeting. The 4 of us went to the meeting in our tracksuits, already tucked, and in our undergarments. I become used to wearing tights that I felt naked if I was not wearing a pair. Miss Moss went through the entire show giving critiques to the cast about the performance. When she got to us, she said that our dancing was superb, but we needed to exaggerate our flirtation when we are in the background. She explained after the public shows there would be a reception. Everyone would need to stay in costume for the reception. The reception would allow the audience to meet and greet the cast and crew. This meant that the 4 of us will stay in costume the whole play, since we would not be able to change after we were done after the second act. Friday night's show was amazing. The audience reaction to our dancing was so exhilarating. It was different than the performances for the school body. The 4 of us hung out in our dressing room till the reception. During the reception, Jeff's family was the first to come up and greet us. His mother gave me a big hug and told us we looked and performed amazing. She asked if my mother was here. I told her she had to work. After Jeff's family, the Robins, came by. Mrs. Robins gave us all a big hug and told us we had come a long way over the past few weeks. The Robins took a picture with the 4 of us. They said it was for the lobby of the dance studio. We greeted what seemed to be the whole audience, taking photos with many of them. Towards the end of the reception, we were surprised when the Robins came over with 4 girls carrying bouquets of flowers. They were all from the dance studio, including Jenny Gray. Jenny gave me a bouquet of flowers as the other girls gave flowers to Jeff, Mike, and Brad. She explained the Robins told them about all the work and dedication that we put in for the play and our dancing. She gave me a hug, whispering in my ears that maybe on Monday I can teach her some of the dance moves. I laughed and said, "You are still a far better dancer than I am." She asked if I wanted a ride home, and without thinking I said sure. I then realized what I said and told her that it would take half an hour for me to be ready. She replied that that was not a problem, and she can hang out and wait. I told Jeff that Jenny was going to give me a ride home. I do not think he thought it was odd, because it was not uncommon for her to give me a ride home before we started with the play. We went back and got undressed, hanging everything up, and took off our makeup. I kept on the tights, putting on my tracksuit, and went back to the reception area. The crowd had thinned out. Miss Moss was talking to a few of the cast and their parents. I met Jenny and we walked out to her car. I joked as we walked that I felt underdressed since I was wearing a tracksuit and she was wearing a nice black dress with pantyhose. On the drive home, I explained to her how the whole opportunity fell into our laps and how I was enjoying the experience, including the dancing. We pulled into my driveway. She leaned over and started to give me a kiss. During the kiss, our mouths opened, and it became more passionate. After we finished, she whispered in my ear that she thought she had feelings for me, but watching me perform sealed it. I gave her another kiss as I thanked her for the ride home. I would classify Jenny as one of my good friends, but not until tonight there was nothing romantic. We had always gone to the same school and even worked together last summer as lifeguards at the local pool. I thought that she was out of her league. As I walked into the dark house, I was even more on cloud nine than after the performance. I prepared to go to bed, but with all the excitements made it hard to sleep. Saturday, we had 2 shows, an afternoon matinee and an evening performance, meaning we would need to be at the school by noon. I told Mom about how exhilarating the performance was over breakfast. She said that she already talked to Jeff's mom. She showed me a photo his mom sent of us from last night. She joked that the only way she could tell it was me was by my nail color. She said she was so proud of me for finding something I enjoyed doing and was eagerly excited to see the show. Jeff picked me up and we went to the school. Like on Friday, Miss Moss had a cast and crew meeting before the show. This one was significantly shorter since I think we all listened to her. She also told us that last night there was several members of the press and we are getting great reviews. This meant that both tonight and tomorrow's shows were already sold out, something that has never happened. We went back to get ready for the first show. The 4 of us had the process of getting ready down pat, and it took us less than 20 minutes. We were all chit-chatty about how amazing last night's show was, and we made the right decision by taking Miss Moss's offer weeks ago. The first show went off without any problems. The crowd was amazing and were very responsive to our performance. During the reception, we took photos with so many of the audience. By the end, my face was sore from smiling. Miss Moss kept telling people how dedicated we were, and weeks ago we were just 4 high school boys with no dance experience. After the reception, we had a few hours before our next show and Miss Moss had dinner catered. We changed out of our costume, put on our robes, and went down to have dinner. During dinner, I showed a few friends of mine in the cast and crew what was under the robe, my boobs and waist shaper. Most of the guys want to know what it felt like wearing the costume and makeup. The girls were more amazed on how we looked and surprised that we did our own makeup. I got ready for the second show. There was more time between these shows than on Thursday, so a few friends on the crew hung out in our dressing room. They claim we had the best couch. It was a little different having an audience as I was putting on my makeup, but I could quickly tune them out. During the second show, it seemed like the audience was even more responsive during our dance, and you could hear some audible gasps and cheers as we did our routines. It was obvious they all knew we were 4 guys and did not expect the moves we did. During the reception, I was shocked when my sister walks up and gives me a bouquet of flowers. This was the second time in my life where a female had given me flowers. Shortly behind her was my mother. She told me she had taken the night off. She was too excited to wait to see the show and called my sister to join her. The 3 of us took a bunch of photos together. After changing, I went back to the reception area where my mother was talking to Miss Moss. Miss Moss gave me a big hug and told my mother how proud she was of me. I would not have to worry about my drama grade. On the drive home, I gave my sister all the details about the experience. I have told this story so many times. She told me Mom said I stole a pair of running tights. I told her that I returned them after Mom had got me my own. Mom smiled at my comment. Sunday morning, I slept in a little. Mom and my sister were having breakfast. It was the first time since the holidays that she had been home, so she was filling us in on college life. Mother asked the two of us if we wanted to go for a run. We said sure and went to change. My sister and I both ran cross country. She was wearing an outfit matching Mom and mine. She told me that I am not the only one that got a new outfit. Wearing matching outfits, we did the normal course which Mother and I have been doing. After the run, I prepared to go to the school for the matinee performance. My sister was headed back to college in the afternoon, so she gave me a hug and said that I was the prettiest little sister. Jeff picked me up and we headed off to school. During the pre-performance meeting, Miss Moss told the cast and crew that next weekend shows were already sold out and was decided to add 2 additional shows. One would be on Thursday evening and a matinee on Friday. It was the first time ever that all the performances had sold out, and she was proud of the entire cast and crew for the hard work. It meant this was the most successful spring show ever. We got ready for the show. It seemed like the crowd was bubbling. They gave us a standing ovation after both dance performances and after the play when we went out for our final bows. The after-show receptions, we got all the attention and took so many photos. We went back to the dressing room removing the nail polish. I was surprised I had not broken any of my fingernails. Jeff dropped me back at home. I went upstairs and lay down on the bed and fell asleep since I was so exhausted from the last 4 days. Week 7, I was kind of worried going back to school on Monday. I was not sure the reception we would get. I was pleasantly surprised that the response was extremely positive. Even the students who I worried about told me that they did not even know that we were guys until afterwards. Monday's classes seemed to fly by. At the end of the day, I took the bus home for the first time in weeks. I had to field questions on the entire ride home about the play. I have told the story so many times at this point. Jenny sat next to me on the ride home. As we got off the bus, she reminded me that I promised to show her some of my dance moves after school. She said she'd be over in a little bit after getting ready. I changed into my practice outfit of black leotard, nude tights and tuck using my dancing belt. I put on my dance shoes since we left our boots at school to be polished for this week's shows. About half an hour later, Jenny knocks on the door. I opened it up and she is standing there wearing a purple tracksuit with the Robbins Dance Studio logo on one side and her name embroidered on the other. She commented on how cute I looked and that I would fit in at her dance classes. She took off her tracksuit. Underneath she was wearing a red sleeveless leotard with a zipper back and white tights. I told her how beautiful she looked as she gave me a kiss on the cheek. We started to do some stretching. She was amazed at my flexibility even though I was nowhere close to her. We went over my typical stretching routine that the Robbins taught us. She showed me a few little tweaks to them which would increase my flexibility even more. She wanted to learn the dance routine from our show. I was not sure why since she was such a good dancer already. I ran through the routine once at normal speed while she sat on the floor and watched. I went through the routine step by step teaching her each of the moves. She picked up the routine quickly and by the 3rd time she already could dance it. I sat there and watched her as she did the routine in a more elegant form. I asked her to show me some tips on making my routine more elegant. She told me it was all about how I move the hips and shoulders in a more rotational manner. It was something she learned from doing years of ballet. We went through the routine a few more times until we fell on the floor giggling. She came over and we interlocked in a very passionate kiss. Time seems to stop as we laid on the floor kissing and interlocking our bodies. The touch of each of our encased legs in tights was electric and was a feeling I had never experienced. After about 15 minutes, we ended up laying on the floor giggling again. I looked over and she had the biggest grin on her face. She said that she should probably be getting home and suggested that we should practice again soon. We put on our track suits, and I walked her home and gave her a kiss goodnight. I spent the rest of the evening on cloud nine, never changing out of my leotard and tights. Tuesday, the four of us decided during class that we probably should run through the routines to make sure we were fresh for Thursday's show. I started to use the tips from Jenny to be more fluid with my moves. I don't think any of the other three noticed. The shows during the week went well. Like the Sunday show, the crowd was amazing. It was clear that we had become the stars of the show based on the receptions. After the first Saturday show, we were all sitting in our dressing room with our costumes off and wearing robes. Miss Moss knocked on the door and said she had somebody that wanted to talk to us. She introduced the woman as Mrs. Kelly, who worked at the theme park in the city. Mrs. Kelly explained that she oversaw hiring for the park and saw a performance and was wondering if we would be interested in performing at the park at a Wild West show. The show typically had can-can dancers, and we were some of the best she's seen. She said we would be perfect. The park would pay all our expenses for the summer. The salary she quoted was 3 times what I made last summer as a lifeguard. She handed her business card to the four of us and told her to give her a call in the next 2 weeks if we were interested. We would need approval from a parent because we were all under 18. Sunday morning over breakfast, I told my mother about the offer. She said the decision was up to me, but it sounded like an interesting experience. Jeff picked me up around lunchtime to head off to the school for our last performance. On the drive over, we talked about how it was sad the play was ending. We slipped into the back door and started getting ready. Even though the plays were extremely popular, the school had never sold out every single performance. We finished our first dance routine. The crowd gave a standing ovation. The same thing happened after our second routine at the end of Act 2. At the end of the play, during the curtain call, as the four of us approached the front of the stage, the crowd again gave us a standing ovation. Instead of doing a bowing or curtsies, the four of us decided beforehand that we were going to do a jump split. As we did them, the crowd roared even louder, and I could see the smile on Mrs. Moss's face get even larger. Several bouquets of flowers were thrown on the stage as we got up. After the show was over, there was an after-show reception in the common space. Since the reception was immediately after the play, we just touched up our makeup. The entire cast and crew enjoyed the party, with several parents coming up to us asking about the experience. Miss Moss gave out awards to everyone, focusing on the seniors who will be graduating soon. When she got to the four of us, she started to cry and did a short speech about how dedicated we were. She gave us all a big giant hug. After the party, we went back to our dressing rooms and got out of our costumes. Miss Moss had already told us that we can keep everything but the dresses. We took off our makeup and put on our tracksuits, and the greatest experience of our lives was over. To be continued? Did I take the summer job?